evening. I am Kamau Kujichagulia, and this is On the Case with Kamau Kujichagulia, where each week we like to talk with someone who has a vested interest in the lives of the citizens of Trenton and of those in the state of New Jersey. And this week we're going to have from the Make the Road New Jersey organization, we're going to have Erica Rodriguez. But before we get to Ms. Rodriguez, we want to talk. I want to talk about unity, a little bit of unity. Come on here, Michael. Hey, hello, son.
How you doing, Dad?
I'm doing just marvelous. Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
it's good
You
to
know,
see you.
well, it's good to be seen. You know, world. As I do a lot of thinking and reading and listening now about world unity, about about the Asian countries. That's the Southeast Asian nations
Hmm.
who come together. And we're of course being in Indonesia. That was a major topic when I was there. You know, and the BRIC countries:
Hmm.
Brazil, Russia, India, China, South
South
Africa.
Africa.
Which has been around for I guess about 20, 25 years, and they're getting hi Dana, and they're getting stronger. You know, and then of course we have the organization, the African Union,
Hmm.
which is trying to bring all the countries in Africa under one umbrella, similar to the um, European Union.
I don't believe they need a passport any longer if you're of African descent to travel to other African countries.
Well, that's a good thing.
I think that was something that passed this week. Or
All right. Well, that's good. That means they're making strides towards that end. One of the major things that they're trying to do is to use to form create a currency that they can use among themselves without
hmm,
having to use the dollar.
right?
Because the dollar has all of these organizations are
Bricks. Yep.
wanting to use a currency, see, regardless of what it is, that doesn't um, utilize the dollar. You know?
Bricks is also. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And just in the past 2 or 3 weeks, South America with where they had 12 independent countries in South America for the first time since I think 2014. They came together. All the presidents came together from South America, and
Hmm.
they're talking now about forming a bloc, a union, so that they can trade among themselves and again not have passports and stuff like that. Have their own money so that they again don't have to use. Of course, United States is trying very hard not to have any of these things happen.
Hmm.
But the United States has tried very hard to keep these peoples and these countries down for centuries. So they,
Sanctions and assassination.
huh?
Sanctions and assassinations.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like right now they still have sanctions on Venezuela. Well, they have on Venezuela, and of course they have sanctions on Cuba. Which is, I mean, just it's just so ugly. You know,
Yep.
for we could be so great. And what they're doing with China is that they're like with their economic sanctions, their trade sanctions,
Hmm.
like microchips. They don't want to trade with China. They don't want China to have our microchips anymore. But you know what? It's too late. I think it's too late with China, because the more they deprive China of our goods and technology, the more China develops
their own
goods and technology.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, you're dealing with 1.4 billion people.
Yeah.
And now they have, China I'm talking about, has the largest graduate class in the world. So the ugliness of America is blowing up in its face.
Yes, it is.
That's a good thing. As far as I'm concerned, it's a good thing.
I think it's a good thing also. I wish I wasn't here, but when it happens, but I do believe it's a good thing globally.
Yeah, because especially not especially South America, but especially the South. You start talking about the South, whether it's Asia or Africa or South America or wherever, they're all basically people of color.
Mm-hmm.
That America and Europe, the people with no color have just been so ugly to us for so long, and they just. But anyway, I want to bring on Miss Rodriguez. Okay,
Miss Rodriguez.
Hello. Where is she? Hello, Miss Rodriguez. Are you there? No.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah. She was here earlier, and her camera wasn't working right. But hopefully she'll be back. She'll be back soon.
She's from the Make the Road New Jersey organization that helps with laws for the immigrant community in New Jersey.
Yeah. There she is. Miss Farid, can you hear us? You seem like your camera is locked up. Oh, at least before we had sound with her.
Yeah.
So, well, we'll keep trying to get her.
Keep trying, Miss Rodriguez.
If you have to unplug it and replug it, and do what you got to do, or you can go to your phone.
I'm on my phone now, and phones work better than my computer, because when I was on the computer, it does the same thing. It lags a lot for some reason. You got to have an Ethernet connection. That's what Sean keeps telling me.
That's what I have.
Ethernet connection would help. I'm sorry. I hope I'm not the only one that has come onto the show with internet problems.
Last week it was me.
Well, greetings. How are you? Okay, you're still lagging, and
yeah, you're still lagging,
and we didn't hear anything that time.
I can hear you well, though. Maybe I can like stop my camera and you can hear me.
There you go. That's good.
That works.
Okay.
Now you're from.
Great. I can hear you perfectly.
Good. You're with Make the Road New Jersey, right?
Yes.
And what is Make the Road New Jersey?
Well, first, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Well, Make the Road New Jersey, we're a community-based organization, a 501c3 nonprofit organization, a project of Make the Road states. And our mission is to support low-income immigrant communities to achieve dignity and respect. And the way that we do this is through community organizing. We have high-quality legal and support services. And we also work on policy innovation, which is, I think I heard a little bit uh, from Michael being shared that we work on laws that enhance the quality of life of immigrants and all people. And we also have transformative education, which means we have a set of community education classes, mostly focused on English as a second or other language, and citizenship classes, and as well as driver's education, testing, written test education classes. Um, so, Make the Road has really deep community roots, and we have community centers that we run from Elizabeth, New Jersey, is our headquarter, so to speak, and we also have offices in Perth Amboy, as well as offices in Passaic, New Jersey. So, and then we also do some work also in Essex County and Newark. We have organizing hubs there as well. So essentially, we work in Union County, Essex County, and Passaic County with immigrant populations, and these cities that have immigrant-rich neighborhoods. We have, like I mentioned, legal services, support services. We have a very expansive health outreach program, or health equity outreach program, where we have community health workers, a team of community health workers, which we call promotoras, who help the community to enroll in healthcare or learn about mental health awareness. We have support groups that we invite people to attend. And on top of that, of course, we have our legal services and other support services. So we reach a lot of people. We reach around like 15,000 people. That number has grown, in the last year as well, to perhaps 20,000 people, immigrant families, families of color, and youth. And we have a pretty big social media outreach. Our events are also places or opportunities to reach many, many people. And just yesterday we had a very successful event, a welcome center for new Americans, new immigrants coming from various parts of the world, and settling in Elizabeth or in New Jersey. We had a welcome center for them where basically a lot of many nonprofit organizations came to provide their services, and we had around almost 300 people attend, and it was very beautiful to bring people together, bring organizations together for a common cause. So it was like you were saying, Kamau, if it's all right to call you Kamau, it's very important to build community, and I think that's what Make the Road New Jersey does pretty expertly, is bring people together through coalitions, through community organizing, through just overall I want to say coalitions, but like more than just coalitions, we build campaigns around issues. So I could talk a lot more about that, but I'll also leave some space for any questions that you have as well.
You guys get things done.
That's right.
What it sounds like. You get things done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay. Now, you were saying that at this event yesterday that you were working with other organizations. Do you work with Black organizations in and around that area?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we very intentionally extend our membership. So I mentioned that we're a community-based organization. We're also a membership-based organization, where we have thousands of members that will meet on a weekly basis, and we intentionally invite and uplift the voices of our Black membership, and uplift Black voices in our community, especially our members who are Afro-Latino. And so that calls for partnerships with organizations that are focused on reaching Black communities, of course, definitely.
I know you were talking about you had offices in various places up in North Jersey, but you were saying earlier that you like you have an office in Trenton, when you come down and petition the legislature and the governor, what is that about?
Yeah. So we were actually in Trenton recently to fight to be included um, in the determination of the state budget. We were fighting to have a corporate business tax be included in the budget processes to make sure that that is not discluded from the budget process. So I mean, when we're in front of Trenton, we're usually, fighting for a certain campaign. So we have this, campaign, a corporate business tax inclusion in the budget campaign that we were fighting for. So we were out there rallying to make sure that our voices are heard, that community voices are heard, because the corporate business tax is, a source of revenue that the state uses to provide social services to people. And if that were to be cut, that means that social services are cut, not just social services, but also just like general, like, for example, transportation services. Though if the corporate business tax is cut in the budget, then those services are also cut, or, corporate or businesses like New Jersey Transit will have their budget cut. And then that means, cuts to bus lines, cuts to train lines that people, communities rely on to get to work. And that's just one example of one service that would be losing money. And then therefore communities would be losing means of transportation or means of surviving. So it was really important for us to be at the State House, making our voices heard and making the community voice heard, to make sure that that doesn't happen. So we're actually waiting. We're all, like on our toes, seeing what happens tomorrow, even though like the decision seems to be made. We're still waiting tomorrow to see what the final result is for the state budget. So.
Okay. What do you guys do to help prevent wage theft? And I hear you guys had a lot to do with getting the minimum wage at $15 an hour.
Yes. Okay. So those are two different topics. I'll start with the first question for wage theft, because so recently we campaigned to pass a temporary workers bill of rights. And that was to provide protections to temporary workers that work in temp agencies in our area in Elizabeth, but also in Perth Amboy. There are many, many temp agencies that go sort of unregulated. And because they are not, following rules, they take advantage of people, they steal wages, they don't provide adequate safety equipment. They will exploit people, discriminate against people. And, this has been going on for almost a decade, and this temporary workers bill of rights.
There's no recourse.
What was that?
There's basically no recourse.
There isn't. No, there isn't. There isn't until now that we have this temporary workers bill of rights, that we've passed the Bill of Rights that now is holding temporary agencies accountable and putting measures on what they can and cannot do, and also putting penalties on what they do, and regulations. So right now that it's in the implementation process, the temporary workers bill of rights, to prevent wage theft, to provide more safety procedures, and protect workers. So that's like one example. It's a great example of what we do, is that we identify an issue, we will campaign around it, we will organize around it, and we will create solutions, also known as policies and legislation, and campaign around that. And then once that is passed, we work to implement the provisions of that legislation. But we are always, met with opposition. So we work we roll with the punches.
Hold up. You're met with opposition to wage theft?
Yeah.
Ha!
That's right. corporations who want to continue to exploit workers and make a profit from, from immigrant workers or workers of color who will not stand up for themselves for the fear of losing their job.
Right.
I had a
And they
young
use
man.
all of their millions, they use all of their dollars, all of their influence to fight, against the legislation and these provisions, not to make it not a reality.
Mm-hmm. I had a young
Yeah,
man
and then we also did work on
staying with me that, when it went to one of these temp agencies, and he was from Haiti, and he came back one day and said, well, he had worked so many hours and they had only paid him such and such amount of money, and he was afraid to say something because he was undocumented. So I had to say something for him to get his money right. But then what happens is they say, when they go to pick people to work, then they say, well, we don't want him. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's a catch-22 type situation.
It is. Yeah. And that's, our mission is to build power in the end, right? And power lies in community organizing and the collective of people standing up as a unit, right? There's a lot of power in that. So, one of the things that we do is that we, in our community organizing, we make sure that we have a leadership model. And that leadership model means that we educate community voices, we educate community leaders, and then they go on to spread the word and let people know what their rights are and what opportunities or what avenues they have to stand up for themselves and make sure that they know that they're not alone. And in building that, it gets bigger and bigger, and then hopefully we can stand up, to temp agencies that do those kinds of things, not alone, but together.
Okay. And you also worked on the minimum wage, and here you got it so that it would be minimum wage for everybody, they weren't able to exclude young workers.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have what we call what is our Youth Power Project, and that is one of our campaigns that is youth focused, and it's pretty formidable, the amount of youth that we engage and that engage with us on a weekly basis, and that is one campaign that they worked on together to make sure that their voices were heard, and this was to protect workers that were working in part in Jersey Gardens in the mall. Mostly youth, mostly teen workers or young adults that wouldn't have been included in that $15 minimum wage increase if they hadn't made their voices heard. And we do it pretty loudly. Like, we have a pretty loud voice. I remember I wasn't with the organization at that time, but I do remember, seeing in the press that they had projected like a huge presentation right on the wall of Jersey Gardens, so that the thousands and thousands of people that would drive up there and go shopping would see that and be like, oh, like, this is going on, this. And it's just one example of like the creativity behind Make the Road to make our voices heard. It's really necessary, and that's what needed to happen in order for teen workers to be included in that $15 minimum wage increase.
And you're the development manager for Make the Road New Jersey?
Mm-hmm, that's right. Yeah, I've been with the organization a little over a year and a half now, but I actually got involved back around 5 years ago to teach their ESL class. So I like really randomly, I was like just starting my nonprofit career in graduate school, getting a master's in public administration, and I was like, I need something to do with my time. And it just, I just so happened to be following Make the Road. I mean, they're an amazing organization. I was always very obsessed with all of the work that they did or do. And I saw that they were looking for an ESL teacher. And I just, in my free time was like, let me apply and see if I could do this. And I applied and I did it. And I started with just a basic class with like 7 or 8 students. And this was 5 years ago. So fast forward 5 years ago, now that I'm working full time, the program has now almost 1,500 students in a year. So within 5 years, we grew pretty expensionally. And now we have curriculum. I used to just Google sheets.
Rodriguez, I see you.
Yeah. And the pandemic really made a big difference too in like the in our capacity and in the access that our community has now, because they can do it from home. I mean, it makes a really big difference going from like having to travel and like have enough chairs and have enough tables. Like I'm talking about, like I was in the church basement looking for like any chairs with holes in them, like whatever needed to get done to to teach. But now we have Zoom, and now we have breakout rooms and we can play videos. Like it's the pandemic is such a blessing in disguise, I feel, for some people, for some communities.
Definitely a double-edged sword. So
Exactly.
let's get back to these young people. Tell me, dreamers. We hear a lot about dreamers in the news.
Yeah.
What are dreamers, and what's the deal there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we also do have a New Jersey Dreamers campaign as well. So I'll like name our campaigns, and then I'll go into what dreamers are. So we have our campaign in Elizabeth, our Elizabeth community organizing group committee, and we also have a committee in Perth Amboy, a committee in Passaic, and then we have our youth committee, and we have our NJ Dreamers committee. So dreamers are people or youth that arrived to this country perhaps at a very young age, and were eligible for deferred action in the administration of Barack Obama, right? That's when it started in 2012. So Dreamers are also known as DACA recipients, and DACA means Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. So it's a policy that started in Obama's administration that protects around 1 million young people who entered unlawfully to this country. And unfortunately, it doesn't grant official legal status. Like, you can apply for DACA, but it does not mean that you're a citizen. It does not mean that you have permanent status. What it does allow is for youth who came to this country illegal or unlawfully, it allows them to apply for a driver's license, a social security number, and also a work permit. And as you know, it allows dreamers to apply for university and to have more freedoms than not. And so, unfortunately, what happened though in the Trump administration is that sometimes I don't know how to refer to Trump. I don't want to refer to him as President Trump or the Orange Man. I don't know.
45.
Right. Unfortunately, there was an attempt to dismantle the program, and then it's been sort of like up in the air since that time. New recipient or new DACA applications have not been processed. There's hundreds of thousands of applications that aren't processed. There's applications that have expired, and at least the most recent rule was that that dreamers who had applications now could continue applying for driver's license, applying for social security number, and like continue their work permits, but there is no like end in sight whether this is going to be a permanent program. There is no like plan to make it to expand it so that DACA recipients can become full citizens. There's no pathway to citizenship for it. So what our NJ Dreamers committee does is, organize around this and make sure that people know what the DACA program is, know what the latest updates are, and are prepared to make that to join that fight whenever it like resurfaces, right? Whenever it becomes popular again, to make sure that there is a pathway to citizenship. I think that's really the goal here, is that dreamers who have been in this country their entire life, who know nothing other than life in the United States, have an opportunity to become citizens here, and to not be afraid of deportation or not be afraid to lose their families. So really, that's the ultimate goal.
So, let me see if I get what you're saying. You're saying that if a kid came here with his parents and they were undocumented, say 30 years ago, but they were like 1-2 years old, that 30 years later, they're still considered to be undocumented illegal people in the United States?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And there's no road for them to become, so what? So immigration can just pick them up at any time and put them out the country?
That's right, except their focus more is on people who just entered the country, there's a backlog of millions of immigrants. So I guess you could say children or young adults that have been here for a long time are kind of like the last person that immigration would go after,
Okay, but they still don't enjoy all of the benefits of citizenship.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Like applying for college. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't.
I know Florida
really understand that.
Florida passed the bill. Florida passed an immigration bill recently, and I'm sure there's a lot of big company owners that are wishing there was a path to citizenship for their illegal immigrants in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Because they hire so many of them?
Yes, and because they're out of business right now, not able to produce as much without their workers.
Okay. Have you worked with POP with Larry Ham up that way?
I'm sorry, was that a question for me?
Yes.
No, I'm not sure what POP is. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I see. They have it's an organization in Newark, which is
okay.
they're not into, well, they do a black thing, I guess. So okay. Well,
yeah, it's unfortunate that's the reality, and the Obama administration wanted to make a difference, and they did, and they had almost 1 million young adults apply for this DACA status, and it allowed a lot of young people to apply for college, a lot of young people to start working, and have some of those freedoms. And then the Trump administration kind of unfortunately put a stop to that, and it's still up in the air. It really is a topic of conversation that needs to be resurfaced, I believe, especially with what you just said, Michael, how there are states that are suffering from not having a pathway to citizenship for the millions of people that are living in their state who are not eligible to work. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty important topic, especially, when you say it, like how you say it, come out, like it's just unbelievable that somebody could live in this country for 30 years and not have a pathway to citizenship.
And then be forced to out of this country back to their native country, one that they might not even know.
Right. It's
That
just it's unfathomable.
Hmm. Interesting. Seems to me that they wouldn't know. You know what I mean?
hmm
So, okay. Well. I see we have Diego has come on. What's up, Diego?
Hey, how are you? I'm
Very
sorry for
good.
the delay. I was
It's okay.
in another committee.
I know how it is, man. I know exactly how it is.
The work never ends.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Yeah.
So
How
you
you doing, Diego?
are the what? Communication officer at hmm,
Make the road. Yes.
yeah. What
Yeah,
is
I'm
it?
the
Legal?
communications manager.
Okay. There you go. Was good. Welcome.
And as you can see, our dedication, Diego is in the office right now, and I am baffled.
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still here.
Getting it
Wow.
done. Getting it done.
Of
You,
course.
Erica, you were saying that you have a legal contingent,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
they do what? I mean, do they go to court with people, or they're there to write legislation, or what is that used for?
Both. We do have, so our legal team. We have a legal services team of about, I believe it's 9 attorneys at the moment, and they do provide direct legal representation in the areas of immigration, housing, and also employment law. So they work with a caseload. Of course, it's at capacity, and but they do direct representation, and they also do help with drafting policy for sure. And also, a big part of their program is resource navigation as well. We have, along with our attorneys, a social worker who helps to connect clients to social services and other resources. And then we also, like I mentioned before, have a mental health initiative where we have mental and behavioral health support groups for immigrant families, focused on migration trauma and stress, and parenting, um, and living in the pandemic, topics like that. So it's almost like our legal team is pretty expansive, and it's also legal and health services.
Okay. So, yeah, Michael.
And Diego, as a communications manager, what do you
Mhm.
do?
So basically, what I do is a lot of things that goes to communications. Besides dealing or handling our social media handles, like because we're on Twitter, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook. I also deal um, with the press. So basically, once we do one, when we have a campaign and we are going to rallies, going to marches, or we are pushing a policy, basically what I do is translate what our organizing team, or legal team, or service team are doing, and put it in a package, in a way for the media, so that they can report it, they can see what our message is, and pretty much what I do, right? Like that's what I do. What I like to say is that I take all the hard work, basically our organizers are doing, like going to speaking with the community, and translate it into the digital space so that everybody can see, and also it can reach other people, right? Because as we're human beings, we can only be in one place at one time, right? If we are having a march in Trenton, uh, we can only be there. But if we translate into the digital space, people from like South Jersey, they can see it. From even Philadelphia, they can see it. In other places, they can see that the work that we're doing, and also that builds community, I think, because it shows that our community, like, people are not alone. It shows that there are other people who are fighting, who are pretty much similar to them, right? Perhaps they're undocumented, and they are afraid of coming out and fighting for their rights. And if they see on a Facebook Live, on a post, or on Telemundo, Univision, or even like New Jersey Spotlight News, for example, right? They see that a mom with three kids who identifies as undocumented is fighting, is in the front lines of that line. They can be like, wow, I can also be that. I should not be afraid. So basically, like, that's kind of like my work in there, here in the organization, is how can we translate all the amazing work our team and our organization is doing so it can be spread out everywhere in the state and beyond.
Okay. And do you and
Man,
Erica, do you guys work together a lot?
Yeah, I think so. I think when we work is like, I think the development work and the communications is like similar, right? Because we have to show that we just not talk, we are
Got
action, right?
got you.
That's right. Absolutely.
now, I be an angry old man. I'm sitting here thinking about, the stresses that another stress that these people have being undocumented and have to worry about getting picked up at any time, I guess, you know, and that must be, you talk about mental health, Erica, that must be horrible.
Absolutely.
My Lord.
How does that weigh on people? How does that weigh on people's mental health, Erica?
Yeah, it's absolutely unfathomable. You can't. I mean, I have trouble describing, you know, what that feeling must be like, and the only thing that I can really like relate it to is growing up with my parents being undocumented, and having to
Oh, wait a minute. Your
sort of
parents are
be.
undocumented.
My parents were undocumented. Yes, they're U.S. Well, my mom is a U.S. citizen, and unfortunately, my dad passed away recently, and did not get to be a U.S. citizen. But my mom and dad were undocumented when they came to this country, and came to Elizabeth, and it is a sort of sense of being in hiding, and not being able to live life freely and fully, and it's a lot of sort of sacrifice, especially for parents or undocumented families that come to this country and have children. It's a lot of sacrifice of just, focusing on working, focusing on not, making too much of not making too much noise for yourself, and staying under the radar. So yeah, it's a, growing up, it was a lot like that, and now being an adult, I talk a lot about what the experience is as a first generation American too, and the many privileges that I have now that my parents didn't have. And just feeling a sense of extreme, like, overwhelming gratitude, to be born in this country, and to have the freedoms that I have as a citizen. It's something that it's definitely hard not to think about, and hard not to say like that this is something that I have to that I have to be able to acknowledge and to uplift other people with the power that I have.
Okay. It's very sorry for your loss, Erica. Very sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, I see on your website that with some of the activities that to join up, that the men or the young boys have to join up to selective service. Is that right?
Say it again.
They have to enroll into selective service.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I don't know right now, but I think in order to qualify for financial aid, I think you need to be the selective service in the military, right? Um,
Now, is that another path towards citizenship? Say if you're undocumented, but you go into to the service, can you get citizenship that way?
I think, I mean, like, I'm not 100% sure, and please, Erica, if you know. I know sometimes that's happening, like for me, I mean, like, in experience, uh, my cousin had to go through that because he came also in the to the country. He came with a visa, and then he overstayed the visa, which made him undocumented, and he chose going to the Navy, not to the Navy, to the Army. I'm sorry, as a way to obtain some type of citizenship. And I think, like, that it has been some of our community, they do that. I think they see it as a way of going to get some type of legal relief, because either that's the easiest path, and also like it provides you some benefits. uh, but I think that it's not necessarily also like one of the ways to do it. I think as of now, I don't know if that's the case, because also we've seen some cases where even that they are in the military, they're veterans, they're still being deported. You know,
Whoa!
yeah, I think I'm not sure when it happens, but I think there's a small community in the border. I think they're in Tijuana, that they were deported when
Huh.
I believe it was during Trump presidency. uh, that's happening, right? And it's not necessarily, I think it's because of the service, but also the way that you look, because if you look a certain way, or if you look uh, quote unquote Latino, enough, people are not gonna believe that you have documents. Like, they automatically think like, oh, maybe you're undocumented, and therefore you're not, uh, you don't have citizenship. And so I think, like, that is, I think it's also rooted into like racism that is in this country, that because of the way that you look, you're perceived, and you're assumed that you are a certain type of second class citizen, or you don't have what the majority of um, the population have. So I think, I mean, like, it might have, is a way, but uh, I don't have the data to see like if it's that's something as of now. Is that something that a lot of people are doing, or some of the community is enlisting because it's gonna provide them with citizenship.
Recently, I think it was today, the Supreme Court made a huge decision as far as affirmative action is concerned. Diego or Erica, Would you guys like to talk about that?
Um, yeah, it's. I mean, like I don't know, Erika, if you
Yes.
wanna, because it's intense. Yeah.
Yeah, it is absolutely intense and completely disgraceful of the Supreme Court to make that decision. And I mean, it just goes to show like how many things are, how many, how like just white supremacist culture is sort of operating under the radar. Because this, I mean, to me at least personally, totally unexpected, like completely unconstitutional, like, like, but I'm not surprised, like there has been a couple things that the Supreme Court has done that has been totally appalling, and this is just another one of those things. And it's just so unfortunate that to this day the Supreme Court and people who support actions like this do not recognize just how pervasive white supremacy is within our systems. I mean, this is like a topic of conversation that um, within our work we talk about all the time, but we don't, because we talk about it all the time, we don't recognize that the rest of the country doesn't talk about it all the time. But somebody just actually made a comment that that how immigrants are treated in this country is just another example of white supremacist culture in our systems. That's right. How it is embedded in the systems of our country. And this, what happened today, is just another example of that. It's it's really unfortunate that people don't recognize that Black and brown people have less opportunities, have, from the moment they're born, um, have almost all opportunities stripped from them. Not all opportunities, but definitely like not as many opportunities as white bodies do. And that affirmative action is one way to acknowledge that. And for it to be taken away is just it's just a slap in the face to people of color, to marginalized communities, to anyone who is trying to get ahead and to be successful in this life. It's just completely, it's just not okay.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, and I think like reinforces systemic racism, right? And unfortunately, like this country has a lot of that. Is embedded in our culture. So taking that away, and also like justices that have I would say benefited from affirmative action,
Mhm.
right? I'm not saying names, but they
Clarence Thomas.
there you go. So I mean, like for them to say like we live in a color, or to try to live in a colorblind society. I mean, like that's not the case. Unfortunately, like we all love to have that, but the way how America is built and the way it's going, is nothing less than colorblind. There's still systemic racism. There's still colorism. There's still some way of, if you have a certain type of income or you look a certain way, you're gonna be ahead, because of and the students of color, especially like here in Elizabeth, right, that we have inner cities, um, schools that don't have the resources, don't have SAT courses, don't have after school activities. How these students who are gifted, who there's nothing to do with how smart they are, because they are smart, but because of the opportunities are not given to them, they're not able to go to 4-year college, or they're not even thinking of that because they have other issues in their lives, that college is sort of a very far away dream, even if they want to go or not. So this decision, I think, cemented that, you know, systemic racism will continue uh, until who knows when, and we need to be aware
I
of that.
I think it's just another step in them erasing their evil and discussing history. They first start out with, trying with critical race, what they call critical race theory, and trying to stop the teaching of their evil and disgusting history in schools. Now, what they're doing with affirmative action is they're not. If you can get rid of affirmative action, then there's, if you have affirmative action, then there's a reason that they have to affirm their history. Like affirmative action is just another thing that demonizes their history, and their history deserves demonization. And I think this is just another step in erasing their evil and disgusting history.
Right? Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, and I think that's something that we need to learn from it. Like we need to discuss this evil, right? This history that is following us, like this shadow that is not allowing us to move forward as a society, that we always have to go back to the same place where we have to still fight for our rights. And like it's 2023, why we still have to fight for these things? Like why? We already passed this, like we need to pass this, but it seems that like Erica said, like white supremacy continues to rule, and is something that we us as our organization and as people of color, like we have to be on the front lines to stop that and to say that this is not right. We need to end this sort of nonsense.
Complete nonsense. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you, because you two have come on and you've cleared up a lot of things for me about the Latino community and DACA, and what Make the Road does, and the struggles that you have, and you put it all together that black and brown people basically have the same road to try. We make that road for both people, because we both been through basically the same thing. So
Yeah.
I want to thank both of you for coming on and sharing uh, with us, and I hope that the two communities can get together and to fight this evil
Mhm.
Yeah,
even
definitely.
better. Because
Yeah,
we got to make it right. We got to make it right. That's the important thing, is to make it
yeah,
right. So
definitely. Yeah, our fight is the same. Like black liberation cannot happen without, like the Latino liberation cannot happen without black liberation.
right.
Yeah. So I think we have to, instead of letting the other side, other far right, making us fight with each other, we need to come together, because together we're stronger than them. Like they call us minorities, but we're not. They
Right.
are.
Right.
That's
So
what Erica was saying earlier. That joining together. We're stronger when people join together. We're a lot stronger than what we are doing something separately.
yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
Okay, Erica, Diego, thank you very much being on the case with Kamau Kujichagulia and Michael Harmon. And
Erica, Erica, thank you very much. Diego, also, thank you. And I'm glad you came on tonight, and hopefully we'll get to talk again.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yes. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
all righty, take
Thank
care.
you.
Well, son, that was enlightening.
Very enlightening. I didn't know that you can, be born here 30 years ago as a 1-year-old or 2-year-old, and then, be taken, just be taken out of the country,
At any
because
time.
you're undocumented. I
Right.
mean, you've been here
You ain't
your
had
entire
nothing to
life.
do with it.
Exactly.
That was my
Exactly.
mom and daddy. And they did. You know?
Right.
You know?
Right.
Basically, imagine that. Your mama and daddy brought you here. They died. You've been here for 30 years. You've never been back to the country that they came from, and you get snatched up, and somebody wants to send you back to a country you've never been to.
That's ridiculous. That's completely ridiculous.
You know, that's almost like somebody snatching you up out of your country and bringing you somewhere that you've never been and telling you gotta work.
A repeat of history.
Yeah.
A repeat of history.
Hot damn. He's something.
That system, man. That system, man.
That system of white supremacy.
Yes. Yes. That is vicious.
Holy shit.
They are vicious.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You know, we got to talk about the war in Ukraine one day. You know, I think that's just a drill.
Yeah.
And that's just a white supremacist drill. You know, making sure that their militaries work right.
Know how to move.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so we have to talk about that one day in relationship to China, because they practicing for China, you know.
Yeah.
But China is going to set this world free. You know what I mean? China. What did Khaleesi say? China is going to break the wheel. You know?
Yeah.
See?
Break the wheel.
We have to talk about that one night. Okay. Okay. Did I tell? Was it last week when we did the show? I said that Italia was coming on.
Italia was going to be next week.
All right.
All right. And in 2 weeks, we're going to have Dashida Dawson. Dashida Dawson will be here in 2 weeks.
The weed czar of New York City?
The weed head, the weed czar of New York City.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I see her up there in press conferences talking to the mayor, sitting right next to the mayor and them other big wigs in New York. I'm like, okay, go ahead, girl.
You know what? They be talking, and then, you know, they be hemming and hawing and stuff, reading off of something. And then she gets up there to the podium, and she just go. Just flow. Flow. You know what I mean? How's it going, girl?
Just go. That's my nephew's mama.
Hey, I tell you, you better start preparing yourself to run for mayor of New York City, because you got what it takes, girl.
Right. Yes.
So, anyway, we got Italia next week, and then the week after that we have Dashida. Okay, that sounds great. Okay, son, it's been good being with you again.
Yes, pal.
That went a bit longer than I expected it to go, but it was good. They gave us some good information. They
did.
They gave us some good information, you know, and I love the way they ended it, you know, letting everybody know that, you know, there are two groups, the black people, the brown people, that should just come together, you know, because we suffered the same thing from this system of white supremacy, which has to be replaced with a system of justice. I'm gonna make that my sign off from now on. You know, we must replace the system of white supremacy with a system of justice. Good night.
They were from Make the Road, New Jersey. Erica Rodriguez and Diego Mena.
That's my sign off, son.
Oh, my fault, Pop.
Okay.
Yeah, that's his sign off.
Yeah. All right.
See you later.